There's some election day spin for you guys, but now there's nothing left but the voting.
Oh, it's our favorite kind of day, voters voting. Top Line starts right now.
Hello and welcome to ABC News Washington Post Top Line. I'm David Challey.
And I'm Rick Klein.
Each weekday we're bringing you the very latest political headlines, reporting, insight, analysis, everything you need and want to know about politics.
And it's twitter.com/thenote. Stay up to date on this very busy, very fun day, our favorite kind.
We had it circled on the calendar for a while.
Long time.
Kick us off.
It is Super Primary Day, the single biggest day of voting probably until November going on today. There are contests in 4 states, and there's 4 particular contests in those states that have got a lot of attention. And one thing to watch is President Obama and his role in all of this. He has decided to stay out of the politics. He is campaigning in nearby Youngstown, Ohio, very close to the Pennsylvania border, but not, we are told, going to mention the fact that there are actually voters going out and in some cases making judgments on his favorite candidates.
So close to the border and still no mention. There's no way that he can fully escape the results, obviously. War record. Yes, a bombshell of a story lands last night in the New York Times. Richard Blumenthal, he's the Attorney General up in Connecticut, the Democratic candidate after Chris Dodd dropped out of that race, which appeared to be unwinnable for him. This had moved immediately to the safe column now, and now we learn that Blumenthal has been not as full-throated about his record during the Vietnam era. He is caught on camera saying about his service in Vietnam. He served in the reserves during the Vietnam era. He never went into Vietnam. This is now a big question about sort of, are you fudging your biography a little bit here when it deals with something about military service?
Yeah, the video is out there, and it's undeniable. It'll be interesting to see him respond this afternoon. But it's important to note, I think, in all this, he did at other times acknowledge in public forums that he didn't serve in active military service in Vietnam. So it doesn't seem to be one of those cases where he's constructing a wholly new biography,
right.
But this is bad.
Right. It just seems to be the way he talks about his military service, he needs to sharpen that in some way going forward, obviously.
To say the least. Exit stage right. Another one bites the dust. This time it is Congressman Mark Souder, Republican of Indiana, who says he had an affair with a staff member and he is resigning from the House of Representatives. These kind of things just start to blur in your mind, David, when you think about the number of House members who've been affected by things like this and going at it. This, though, is a blow to Republicans. We've seen earlier in the year Democrats dealing with similar circumstances, or at least roughly similar. This is a leading crusader of conservative values who's admitting to a pretty serious transgression. Right.
We probably won't hear the Republicans mention Eric Massa too much anymore. And the one to watch, that's our final headline today. Of all the contests out there today that Rick was talking about, the one that we are supremely focused on is the only one where there's a Republican versus a Democrat. This House special election taking place in southwestern Pennsylvania to replace the late Jack Murtha. And really, it's 2 storylines coming out here, Rick. Either the Democrats lose this and Republicans begin that march to what could be a brutal year for Democrats, or Republicans miss an opportunity here in precisely the kind of place they need to win and maybe need to rethink their strategy. Those are the 2 storylines that could come out of here and have ramifications going forward.
That's right. And, you know, the whole narrative of the Republicans having a good year is so caked in that now the pressure really is on Republicans to start delivering in races like this. And if they're not successful in a district like Jack Murtha's, then it's going to raise questions.
And this is where we begin. We brought in some partisan brawlers today on Election Day. We have Doug Heye. He's the Communications Director for the Republican National Committee, and Brad Woodhouse over at DNC headquarters. He's the Communications Director for the Democratic National Committee. Gents, thanks for being here. Doug, let me begin with you, and let's start right there with the special there in Pennsylvania. I mean, is this not exactly the kind of district you guys need to win if you're going to become the majority party?
By and large, yes, but let's credit Ed Rendell with one thing. He is as sharp a politician as can be. And, you know, when Monty Hall shows you what's behind curtain number 3, it's because he knows what's behind curtain number 3. Ed Rendell picked this day for a reason, because it gives a structural advantage to the Democrats. So the Democrats should win this today because they have 3 turnout machines going on with the 2 Senate campaigns. The Critz campaign, Mike Mick is his campaign manager, has done a great job. But we're still in the hunt. And at the end of the day, we want to be in the game at the end. So we're in a position to win, and that's where we are. Well, we can win now or we can win in November. But given the structural advantage that the Democrats have put in place for themselves, the fact that we're even competitive is something we're really happy about.
Brad, the other big contest in Pennsylvania today, obviously, is the Democratic primary. We saw President Obama take an active stance early on, not show up late. Should we be reading something into that, the fact that he decided not to stop by while he's in nearby Ohio today?
Well, look, I would be remiss if I didn't address, Doug's spin on Pennsylvania 12. I mean, come on. I mean, this is a race your own political director last week said that you should win. Tom Davis, the former national NRCC chair, said this is a race that Republicans should win. It was a seat that McCain took in 2008. Republicans should win this, and it's interesting that you said you would after after Jack Murtha passed away. Now you're downplaying expectations.
But Brad, let me just follow up on that quickly. To that point, though, isn't today different than November? Aren't the dynamics somewhat different at play today, as Doug was saying, than they will be in November in this district?
Well, I don't think so at all. Republicans should have their own turnout machine in PA 12, and to say that because there's a Senate Democratic primary going on, therefore we don't have to turn out voters. I mean, what does that say about the Republicans' mechanics on their side? And I think Tom Davis actually addressed this earlier today. So Republicans really have their back up against the wall, because if they don't win Pennsylvania 12 today, what's their narrative for the fall elections?
Back to my question, Brad. Why isn't the president there in Pennsylvania working this, not just for Arlen Specter, but you're right, for the House race that everyone is saying is on the line? Why not be there?
Well, look, the president has supported Arlen Specter. We're there. Organizing for America is there supporting Arlen Specter, and this race is extremely close. And look, having Arlen Specter become a Democrat was the right thing to do. If you just look at the past year, he's cast crucial votes for health reform, for other parts of the president's agenda, and so the president has demonstrated his support for Arlen Specter, as have we.
Doug,
and yet he's in the fight of his life and can lose today. And if he doesn't lose today, we'll lose in November, because both Sestak and Specter are losing to our candidate on the Republican side. And let me just address our mechanics really quickly, since Brad brought them up. We've made over 500,000 volunteer voter contacts in Pennsylvania 12. You magnify, or you expand that to see what we do in Pennsylvania in November. We're going to be very competitive. We're going to win that
exactly.
race.
You should win Pennsylvania 12 today.
And we'll win it today. If we don't win it today, we'll win it in November.
Let's see how.
But again, credit Ed Rendell. It's the Monty Hall strategy, and it's smart.
Okay, let me. I want to take what Brad was saying about the president and ask you, Doug. What do you guys see here? Is the president on the line in any way here, or no? It sounds like Brad says, listen, they got what they needed from Arlen Specter, and they don't really care which D ends up on the ballot.
Well, maybe they don't. But I look at this race as coming down to one person. The New York Times wrote about yesterday. His name's Sam Boyd. He's an Obama voter, and he regrets voting for Obama, and says he's going to vote Republican today in Pennsylvania 12 because he's upset with what the administration has done. And the question comes, how many Sam Boyds are there in this country? What we've seen in Massachusetts, what we've seen in New Jersey, what we've seen in Virginia, there are a lot of Sam Boyds, and we're going to engage them. We're going to provide real activity on the ground, and that'll help us be successful in November.
Let's touch briefly, Brad, on Arkansas, the other big Democratic primary today. Sure. You've got Blanche Lincoln up against Bill Halter. Bill Halter challenging from the left. Blanche Lincoln early in this campaign was coming out and saying, look, Washington's broken and I'm doing everything I can to fix it. And she was against a lot of things in the Obama agenda. You've got these liberals out there saying we want someone that represents the values. What's wrong with Bill Halter? Why shouldn't Bill Halter be the guy carrying the flag from the DNC from the Democratic perspective?
Well, look, I think if you look at it, Blanche Lincoln, look, people have to represent their states. That's something that Chairman Kaine understands. It's something that President Obama understands. And Blanche Lincoln has done a lot of heavy lifting for this administration. She's done it on Wall Street reform. And look, there's a multi-candidate field there today. There probably won't be an outcome. There'll be a runoff. So I think it'll be hard to draw many conclusions from that contest today, one way or the other.
Doug, I also want to get your take on Kentucky. We're seeing another real Tea Party versus establishment battle take place on the Republican side between Trey Grayson and Rand Paul.
Brad, we'll get to your primary in a second. Don't worry.
But this is Mitch McConnell's guy. This Trey Grayson is the guy that was picked. Vice President Cheney is in there for him, and Rand Paul's been leading in all the polls. We saw this with Bob Bennett in Utah. What is going on inside your party during these primary processes?
Well, what we see is that voters are engaged and they're energized. Why are they energized? Because we've got the best person to drive activism in the Republican Party, and his name's Barack Obama. People are upset with what Obama's doing, and so voters are getting engaged. And when you look at the reality of the polling, whomever wins in Kentucky today is up against Mongiardo and Jack Tough Conway, and we've seen that ad of him. In either case, whoever emerges from the Republican Party, they're going to be ahead. And this is a state that Obama's height of his popularity was 41% in Kentucky.
Brad,
that's not a winning formula.
Brad, before we let you go, Connecticut, big revelation about Dick Blumenthal. Is Dick Blumenthal going to be the Democratic nominee for Senate?
Look, I absolutely think he will be. I mean, you know, over the course of hundreds and hundreds of events with veterans, by the way, are going to stand up with him and support him at 2 o'clock. He's misspoken a few times. These were cherry-picked by his opponent in that race, or his potential opponent in that race. But let me just say something. There's nothing more audacious that's been said in politics in the past year than John McCain proclaiming that he was never a maverick and saying he hadn't switched his position on immigration reform. So, you know, we can go round and around about audacious things that have been said on the campaign.
Well, I don't know about that, but with regards to Blumenthal, you know, to reference what Brad said, once is an occurrence, more than that's a pattern, and we've seen this as a real pattern.
Guys, we got to leave it there. I'm sorry. Brad Woodhouse, the DNC, Doug Heye, the RNC, thank you both very much for being here.
And the now
Let's do it again.
All right, we know it.
We will.